It's Monday, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of Mo Mondays. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had great weekends. My name is Mo, and in today's episode, I am going to give you the basic overview of Teams Room setting on the actual Microsoft Teams Rooms device itself. So in the next 5 minutes, I will show you all the basic settings, not going into too much detail, but keeping it quite high level, so that you know exactly what you need to do to set up your device in the correct manner. So without further ado, let me go ahead and switch over to my Teams Rooms device. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice is, wow, Mo, your MTR looks completely different from maybe what I'm using right now. And yes, I am currently rocking the latest GUI for Teams Rooms on Windows. This update is coming very, very soon. It should be landing by the end of this quarter, and it kind of gives that same look and feel, whether you're using Android or whether you're using Windows. So yes, it looks phenomenal. First thing we're going to do is go here to the More button, tap that, and then you're given a bunch of options. From here, I can absolutely restart my device if I need to. I can report any issues, and that will effectively collect the logs and send a report over to whichever email address you've added in, and I'll show you that in a second. Any accessibility settings, and then, of course, the main settings. Now, if you are setting up a Microsoft Teams Rooms for the first time, you would be definitely going straight into settings. When you hit that settings button, it will ask you for your admin credentials. I will enter my very secure admin credentials across there. Give it a couple of seconds while it loads up, and you will be given with this screen. Now, the first screen that you see is the About screen. So the About screen will effectively tell you what app version you're rocking. So currently I am using the 4.15 version, the Windows version, and also what room license you have. And again, this is super important. So if you are setting up and you're running into issues, you're able to kind of identify, are you using the basic license, no license, or the Teams Rooms Pro license? Of course, your IP addresses and things will then show up as well. Now, if you are setting up a device for the first time, the first thing that you need to do is move across here to the account settings. Inside of the account settings, this is where you will enter your room resource account. Now, remember, Teams Rooms is designed to work with a room resource account and not with a personal account. So make sure you have that room resource account ready. So enter your email address, your password, and then under the supported meeting mode, depending on the infrastructure and how you or your customer is set up, you choose one of these options. In my case, we are rocking Teams only, hence the reason why Teams only is set up here. But by default, some customers may still be kind of on-prem or a hybrid, so they may need to select Skype for Business and Teams by default, or the other way around. So Teams only in my case. Just underneath that, you'll notice we have the modern authentication button. Now, number one, troubleshooting. A lot of times, if this is switched off, what you'll find is the account either won't sign in or it won't pick up the calendar. And the first thing you should check is modern authentication. Switch it on, reboot the machine, and everything should be up and running again, providing that you're using modern authentication. In our case, we are using modern authentication, hence the reason it is switched on there. We can then move directly into the advanced tab. So in the advanced tab, 9 times out of 10, there's not much you need to do here on a typical kind of deployment. Of course, if your customer is using things like domains and stuff, then yes, you can configure the domain and enter those details across here. In my case, I'm using a standard traditional setup, so there's no need for me to do it. Auto-populates kind of with my Teams Rooms room resource account. Underneath that, we then have meetings. So this is where it starts getting a bit more interesting. Inside meetings, do you want to set up what we call automatic screen sharing? Automatic screen sharing means the minute you plug in a HDMI, does it automatically start sharing directly on screen? If you want that selected, so again, it's less for your customer, it's less about them having to learn how to do it. They simply plug into a HDMI and it will automatically share the screen. Or do you want to toggle that off? If you toggle it off, you manually have to use the share button to actually switch that on or share your content. Underneath that, show your meeting names. So again, this is used for those deployments where maybe you have more sensitive meetings taking place and you don't want to show meeting names and you don't want to show exactly what that meeting's about. By default, it's switched on, but you can go ahead and turn it off. And then, of course, we have leave meetings automatically if everyone has left. Great option to use again across here. So the system will detect if the call has ended and somebody's forgotten to actually switch off or leave the room, it will automatically leave the room itself as well. Now, further down, third-party meetings, again, super important if you are using what we call direct guest join. So with direct guest join, you do need to go in here and switch on Cisco WebEx and Zoom. And then whether you want to join with room info or join with custom info across here. By default, most customers will be joining with the room info and then toggling on the Cisco WebEx and Zoom options across here as well. Let's move directly into device. So in device, if you are rocking a dual monitor setup, then you can toggle this switch on across here. If you toggle that switch on, you can then tell the system if you need to swap the screens depending on where you want the presentation to look and where the video to come across there. Bluetooth beaconing again. So if you want to go ahead and use proximity-based meeting invitation. So if you walk into a Teams meeting room with your laptop or your mobile device and you want to join using that equipment in the room, Bluetooth beaconing needs to be switched on. And that way you're able to actually find the device and go ahead and make the connection as well. Earlier on, I spoke about where you can report a problem. You can actually insert a different email address just down here. So when you send logs with feedback, excuse me, it will also send those logs to whichever email address that you select down here in the bottom. Next, coordinated meetings. So if you are using something like a Surface Hub inside of the same room, you can turn on coordinated meeting. And coordinated meetings allows you to use one touch join and it dials both devices into the room. And then it works out which device is the one that's going to be using the audio and video versus the one that's going to be used for collaboration. So across here, you can actually go ahead and select coordinated meetings. You can turn on whether it's this device's microphone that's being used or the other one. Same thing for the camera, whether it's whiteboarding. So again, you know, in the example of a Surface Hub, you can turn on the whiteboarding for that device as well, and then enter the credentials. So the address that goes into the trusted device account box down here as well. Moving on, let me turn this off. Moving on, peripherals. So peripherals is pretty straightforward. You can go ahead and select what you are using. So in my case, I'm using a Sennheiser intelligent speaker, or you can use, you know, the traditional speaker that's built in onto your device. Same thing again for the conferencing. So microphone and conferencing, go ahead and choose which one you want to use and set the default kind of volume. And if you are using a content camera, you can go ahead and select the content camera here and insert those details across there as well. And then, of course, your default video camera as well. If you're using multiple cameras, then you'd select that default video camera right here in this screen. Moving on, selecting themes. You can then go ahead and select whichever theme that you want to use. Because I'm using the preview version, I have Into the Fold, which is the one that I'm using right here. And last but not least, we have Windows settings. If you select Windows settings across here, you will then be able to sign into the administrator profile on the device itself. So what it will do is when you hit the Windows setting, it will then give you like the typical kind of Windows screen. You can go ahead and select administrator across here, type in your administrator, wrong password, put your credentials right here, and that will move you into the Windows environment. And then if you need to change any settings, you know, do any recoveries, etc., that will then show up on this screen. Whew. Way over 5 minutes, as always. But hopefully that was a whistle-stop tour in terms of Microsoft Teams Room settings. In further episodes, I will go into a bit more detail on what the out-of-box experience looks like, how to use the device, and if you need to or want to learn any more about any of the settings that you've seen, please do make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below to let us know what you would like to see in future episodes. And do make sure to hit that little bell button as well. So if there's any content that comes from the Microsoft team, you'll be alerted straight away. With that in mind, I'll see you next week.